So first I have to create stored procedures in SQL Server. So go to Server Explorer. This is your database connection for MSDemoDB. Stored procedures. Right click. Add new stored procedure. Then here I write create procedure sp underscore, that is stored procedure sp underscore get all emps departments, that is the stored procedure, as begin end. Now I'm going to write a query in this stored procedure, that which is containing for equi-join, that is in SQL Server. When you join data from two tables based on certain condition. How do you do that? Number, name, job, salary. What are the columns I gave? EMP ID, EMP name, EMP salary, E dot department ID, DPT name, DPT location, DPT head, department head, from EMPS E inner join department D on E dot department ID equals to D dot department ID. This is a query which works for equi-join, where we are trying to join data from two tables. One is EMPS table, the other is department table. Update. Update database. Successful. Close this. Now that was a stored procedure without any parameter. Refresh and you can find the stored procedure. Here, expand. We don't have any parameter. Now rule. This stored procedure you have to use in entity framework. Go here in entity framework. What you have to do, you have to get your stored procedure. So to get the stored procedure, first we have to say right click in this diagram window, update model from database, add no stored procedures, DBO, select this stored procedure. Get all EMPS department, click on finish. Yes, now it brought the stored procedure from SQL Server into where entity data model. Now rule, in entity framework, you cannot call stored procedure directly. We cannot call. So it requires a support of function. Means you have to convert your stored procedure to function. In entity framework, you have to do that. How do you do this? You have one special, browser provided, specially to do this task and to deal with EDMX. Right click in this diagram window. Here we have model browser. Click on yes. model browser. Here we have expand. This is your stored procedures. Double click on it. Automatically this procedure will be imported to function. Double click. Yes. Again double click. Here. Whatever columns you gave, that all columns are available. Get column information. All these columns are there in the query. You got everything. ID, name, department ID, name, everything. Okay. Converted. Procedure converted to function. Now what do you want to do? You want to call this procedure for execution. In what do you call connected model? This is lengthy program we write. Easily that program will have around 12 to 14 or 15 lines of code you write for that. If parameters are more, the code will still increase. So here, simplest way to handle, simplest way. Under form load event, first you have to write ms demo db entities db new ms demo db entities constructor. Then gv departments dot data source equal to db dot sp underscore get all emps departments dot to list. That's it. Over. Whatever the query you have written in your stored procedure, that will be executed, and it will be calling the total data back into your what grid view. Over 2 lines, hardly this connection string, however required, 1 line, you're done with your requirement. You go through my video and notes which I gave you for stored procedure in connected model, you could definitely feel lengthiest code that you have written there. Here everything is managed with one single line of code. Execute and you can find both tables data available for us. 14 records will be there, no doubt. 14, whatever the records are there, EMP table. Those many records will be there. And along with that, every employee, you're connected even with department information. See here. Oh, sorry. This I have to comment. It is getting the data of department. This line I should comment. It's overwritten actually. Content is overwritten. Okay, now you'll get that. Yes, here 14 records. Every employee, ID, name, salary, department ID, continuation name, department name, location, department head. Both tables data has been clubbed into single output. That is based on what? Stored procedure. Try for next one. Right click, add new stored procedure. This time we'll try with parameters also. Now how to write? Create procedure sp underscore get all emps by department ID @ID, which is of integer type, as begin end. You have to write a query. Select emp ID, emp name, emp salary, department ID from emps, where department ID equals to @ID based on parameters. That is the reason. It's my personal suggestion, like how you take and all is up to you. But my personal point is, uh, if you are trying for a job on C Sharp, connecting with C Sharp, not complete .NET. If you're trying for a job on experience basis, so they expect what compulsory a subject related with the what SQL Server. not necessary SQL server. They ask like you should be aware of one database. Compulsory. You require to have knowledge on it because just writing code every time not necessary. Like the same stored procedure you may come across. Here I'm trying to cover scenarios. Without parameters, how does it work? With the parameters, how does it work? Only that part I'm covering. But as a programmer, you should know quite more in detail about stored procedures that would match your experience kind of profile. So I would suggest you whenever I start SQL Server next batch, I'll intimate you in advance so that if your timings are free at that time, you start off even learning SQL Server as well. Because if not here, you may get stuck up in MVC again. So MVC may you need to have that knowledge like. So it is best like if you have idea on what SQL Server, so that even matches even if you're trying for experience basis. Okay, you plan accordingly, but this is my opinion and suggestion for you. Because just I'm writing a code, but there is a lot to study on stored procedures. Okay. Now, coming to the point that what we are going to learn now is a stored procedure with what? Parameter. And I took one parameter of integer type. And that parameter we are substituting in your what? Department ID. Comparing. Now execute this first. Update. Update database. Perfect. Successfully completed. Now you want to call this now. So how do you call this? Same code. Here only I'll adjust. Okay. Comment this. Call. This time parameters is, oh, first I have to do the, sorry. I can't call directly now. First I have to get into diagram. EDM. Right click. Update model from database. Expand stored procedures. Schema. Select this. Finish. Okay. Right click. Model browser. Stored procedure. Double click. Double click. Get column information. Done. Over. Now it is ready for execution. Now what is that you give as a department ID? Based on that, I should get employee. So now it's left to you. Either you make your code static or you decide your value at runtime. So I would suggest you to go with runtime only. But how do you manage that process? That I'll show you now. Form1.cs. Here I say gv departments dot data source equal to db dot sp underscore get all emps by department id int dot parse txt department id dot text. After that I write to list. But that's it. Save. Run the code. Now see the difference. Input string was not in a correct format. Input string was not in a correct format. What is the parameter I gave? Refresh, expand, ID, right click, properties, integers, correct. Save. Yeah, this is error. Cannot convert. So I should parse it. Int dot parse txt department id dot text. Parse it. Then execute the code. Input string was not in correct format. Once you try giving same value, 3, department ID 3. I'm getting, instead of directly here, I try to connect with this department ID. Integer ID equal to int dot parse txt department ID dot text. Okay. Remove 3 and write ID once. Yeah, ID. Save. Yeah. What is the other way of converting? Convert dot to int 32 of txt department ID dot text. Input string was not in a correct format. 64 line has an error. 64, yes, this is 64 line. Or else you have to keep a button and do this then. Might be because it is in form load event, it's giving error for us. You have to manage it with the button. Okay, anyways, you have to keep a button and then you have to try this. So I'll put constant value now. 3. Control F5. Direct output. 3. All the employees connecting with third department. Place a button here. We'll try once. Is it an issue of a button or what? Button. Go to properties. Button I'll give. Execute procedure with department ID. BTN execute procedure. Increase this. Okay. Let's try now. How does it respond? Same logic, I'll copy paste it. Copy both the content. Control X. Control B. Now get your ID here. Direct I'll give. Int dot parse txt department ID dot text. Save. Run. Department ID 3. Yes. Department ID 2. Yes. Department ID 1. Yes. Department ID 4. Department ID 3 again. Yes. Because it is in form load event, it didn't work. Actually, you can link like this. You can create a button and do the process. Okay, direct form load event was error, so we tried to manage with what now? Button. And we have written the same logic in button click event. This is another example. Now, third scenario, server explorer, right click on stored procedure, add new stored procedure. Now I write a code. Create procedure sp underscore get ename esal department id based on employee id. All parameters, employee id integer, ename varchar 30 or 20, whatever you want, 20, and it is output parameter at the rate esal integer output at the rate did integer output as begin. Select at the rate ename equals to emp name at the rate esal equal to emp salary at the rate did equals to department id from emps where employee id equals to at the rate eid end. Yes. So now we have, in this example, your stored procedure is containing one input parameter and three output parameters. One input and three output parameters. Update database, successful, close, go to server explorer, refresh. Yes. Here we have, here you see symbols, you see here output arrow mark is on top, so it's output showing forward direction, input showing inward parameter, the symbol you can see. So one input and three output parameters. Now logic will change. Now we don't, because we are talking about output parameter. So remember, compulsory for those three output parameters I have to create three parameter objects. If you go through my topic of stored procedures in connected model, I have explained you SQL parameter. That class I have explained you, SQL parameter. Here, because it is entity framework, you have to use a class called object parameter. Oh, it's not identifying. Okay. So you should add one namespace. Go on top, add one namespace. Somewhere here I write. Using system dot data dot entity dot core dot object. Yes. Come down. Now you type same parameter, same. Object parameter. Yes. Parameter en equal to new object parameter. Parameter name, I don't remember. I gave some name. Go to Server Explorer. Ename. Parameter name is ename. And what type of data it will contain? String. Type of system dot string semicolon. Second parameter, object parameter, parameter salary, new object parameter. E, parameter name you check one. Esal, S also capital. Sal, comma, type of system dot decimal semicolon. Object parameter, parameter did equals to new object parameter did, comma, type of system dot int 32, semicolon. Three parameters. Now you have to say db dot sp underscore. Okay, so it will not work. I have to get that stored procedure first. Go to diagram, right click, update model from database, expand, select this procedure, finish. Then right click, model browser, stored procedure, double click, automatically cursor is on none because we don't have any columns in it. No columns to select. Okay, but function is there, that is different. Now I should go and write code. So I just go to form1.cs. Now we will use that stored procedure. Yes, now here I say db dot sp underscore ename esal department id. First some ID I'll give 10 employee ID it is. And what you want, data you want to store in parameter name, parameter es, parameter did, semicolon. Then you have to say string s equal to employee name plus parameter en dot value plus slash n, employee salary plus para es dot value plus slash n, department id plus para did dot value, semicolon. And you have to write message box dot show of s. But that's it. Now the moment I run my code, I'll have all my details of 10 employee. 10. I committed the ID there. Yes. He is J, his salary, his department ID. If you want to have your own employee ID, then same logic. You have to create one button and you have to use employee ID for that and then go for the process. In that way, direct J414. But if you want to use as runtime, then you have to manage. I have already shown now department based on department we got employees now. So using that logic, you have to manage. This is how you manage to work with what? Stored procedure. Now, one last topic we have. We'll just discuss that part also. And that is you call uh, something as immediate mode and deferred mode execution. Immediate mode execution and what I said, deferred DIFFERED, deferred mode execution. What is the difference? You analyze, but when I execute the code, I'll show you. That is what our topic is now. Instead of learning theory, I'll just show you practical approach of it. I commented this part. Now do one thing. First, I'll show you. Type inference. Result is equal to db dot emps. Interesting thing to notice in this coding is I said connection dot table name. I didn't write to list. I didn't write to list. I didn't write. So just writing to list without writing to list makes a big difference in entity framework. I didn't write to list now. Anyways, we'll continue. String s equal to blank space for each var emp one employee I'll get in res. Then you have to one employee. No? I'll better keep capital. Okay, emp s plus equal to emp dot emp id slash t plus emp dot emp name slash t plus emp dot emp salary plus emp dot department id slash n semicolon. Message box dot show of s. That's it. Only difference I'm saying. You didn't write to list. That's the only difference. db.em. Okay, you want to see? First, we'll execute this query. Yes, all 14 records you could see here. Anyways, now do one thing. Now you change this. Just add to list. Execute. Now also I'll get same output. Yes, but now as a programmer, or entity framework, how does it make a difference with the to list and without to list? What is the difference? That is also retrieving output. This is also retrieving output. But what's the difference? Okay, to check the difference, we have to verify this code. We have to verify this code step by step manner. Tracing, you remember, right? Tracing. So you have to trace your code and understand that. So that too, for tracing, what you're supposed to do is this db.emps, this line is there, no? Exactly in this line, put breakpoint. Yes, this is for verification. Please understand. Verification. Yes. Now I place my breakpoint in this line. Okay. Now don't run the code. Start without debugging will not have any meaning in creeping breakpoint. So better I go with start debugging. Okay. Okay. Now cursor is here. Here, cursor is in this line. You want your res. So you have to put your cursor, I mean to say pointer, on res. Click on add watch. Yes. Currently res value is null, no data. Now let's continue with the F11 here, or trace into here. Step into F11. Click on it. Now you see watch you can see in watch. It makes a difference in the watch. I'm saying see the difference. In watch it will show the difference. You continue. Step into. Now you see when you're not writing to list here, the query is getting executed here. Select res is containing select query. If you don't write to list, res is containing select query. I'm saying id, name, salary, department id, from table. Now, so it means this makes a difference. If you don't write to list, query will have execution in the iteration of for loop. db.emps will not get the data. db.emps has brought res containing select query. Now, number of times this query works, those many times your select query will have execution. Over. Fourteen record. But interesting thing, what was there in res? Definitely, res was containing query, not output. Okay, now you add dot to list, same query, just added with what now? To list. Same. Debug, start debugging. Start debugging. Yes. Exactly will come there and will stop. And from there. Now result is again containing null. See the difference. Step into. Step into. Already you see the moment this line executed, you find count equal to 14 and you can experience. Now res is not containing query. No, there is no discussion of query because res straight away contains data now. That makes a difference. Deferred mode execution, immediate mode execution. Under deferred execution, what will happen? Query will be executed at the iteration of loop. And in immediate mode execution, what will happen? Query will be executed immediately when it connects to table of entity set. The moment it connects to table, it will make the data available. Means query will be executed within that line, and res will contain data of 14 employees. If you don't write to list, query will execute in for each loop. If you write to list, for each loop will not execute query. For each loop is meant only for retrieving data. Res contains direct output at that time. So to list is what now? What do you say? To list is what? Immediate mode execution. Immediate mode execution. Another technique, what I was saying is, where res equal to db.emps. This is called deferred mode execution. Within that line, it's not going to work. It's not going to work within that line. It will work execution at for each loop. So here, deferred mode execution at query executes at iteration of loop. Immediate mode execution. Query executes immediately after connecting to table. After connecting to table. That makes a difference. With the to list, without to list. That's it. This concludes your complete ADO.NET. Right. Now, from here and every day, we are going to cover one topic. Now, the small topics are remaining. So next, we'll go with the next topic.